let's walk through the purchase of a farm. So I'm going to, I bought a piece of property. I call up Boa Safra, which means.
Good question. Our founders, Bryce Earlbeck and Tyler Brook from here in Iowa and Nebraska, both at different times and different places worked in Brazil. So they both know Portuguese. Boa Safra is just Portuguese for good harvest.
So buying a farm.
Okay,
I wanted to get that in.
Yeah,
It's
good.
It's Johnny Boa Safari. I'm like, we're going snake hunting, baby.
Yeah.
So I buy a piece of property. I know of this. Okay. I've heard about this. I heard about this on a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a deduction out there. I don't know what to do with it. I bought a piece of real estate. I don't know what to do. I call Boa Safra or, another company that works in this. You're here, so I'm going to pick on you. I'm going to call. What do I do? I don't know what to do.
Yeah. The starting point with us is there just an online form that gives us the particulars on the owner. If there's a contact that's separate from the owner, if there's a tenant involved, we need to know that because we need to get permission to go on the property. And then the particulars on the real estate that you want us to work on, right? So it's a very, benign process. I mean, it takes a few minutes to fill out one of these online forms. Once that gets submitted to our office, we take the information that you give us and turn that around in a written contract that has maps, like aerial maps of your farm or farms, and we send that back out to you and say, okay, does this all look right? We want to make sure that we're all, looking at the right property and everybody understands how this process works. And if everything's right, they just sign it, send it back, and then we immediately get soil orders put together work orders put together for our soils team to go out and work on that. The entire process takes about 60 days from like a signed agreement to a delivered report on average. There's things that change that from time to time. Like right now, we've got people that are signing up over the summertime and they're standing crops on the field. So we're not going to go in and sample that until after harvest. So we put those on a harvest hold until harvest happens, and then we'll get out there and finish the report after that. Sometimes we need some kind of information from the landowner. And if they delay in getting it to us, I mean, we can't move any faster than the client provides the information we need to get the report done. So, but in general, if everything works smoothly, about 60 days from front to back when you're planning, in terms of getting this in time to file with a tax return. And the due date for the report isn't necessarily, say you bought your farm in 25, right?
Okay.
It's not necessarily 12/31 of 25 when you have to have the report done, right? You've got an acquisition date that is on each parcel, and you're going to provide that to us in that information request, and that's going to be published in the report. So it's really clear in the report what farm we're working on, when was it acquired, what's the nutrient load, what's the deduction, how's it all work. It's all laid out in the report. And so really your deadline is whenever you want to file your return. If you're an early filer, a late filer, whatever that is, that's what you need to plan for so that you have that report in hand when you go to complete and submit your tax return.
Okay, so I submit, I go out and fill out the form. You guys send it back, and Ariel, is this the correct farm? You guys go out and you soil sample. What causes a deductible event? Is that the right term? I mean, basically, how do I know there's a deduction? Are there levels that I have to meet, or their land has to meet? What doesn't qualify?
Yeah, that's a really common question.
Because it feels like, okay, let's sample every acre everywhere and never pay taxes again. Well, but it's like, sure, I mean, there's guidelines. It's like, what's the starting point? What even does every farm make sense? Do more farms make sense than others?
Yeah, there's a couple of factors you need to think about in choosing, whether to proceed. One is the land needs to be ag real estate, right? It needs to be in ag production of some kind. That can be row crops, it can be haying, it could be grazing, it could be, any kind of production activity. It just can't be like idle ground or set aside ground or, no production. We've had people that came and, bought land that they were going to develop for housing, and it just because it happened to be zoned agricultural, but there was no production going on. It's just an idle piece of ground. That's in our opinion, that's probably not, you know what I mean? Not a very defensible
Yep.
deduction if you do ever get challenged on the deduction. So we're always trying to figure out how to make sure that, everything we do is going to survive whatever happens down the road with the client, you know.
Well, you want the IRS to look at a form and go, oh, Boa Safra did this. It's probably on the up and up.
Yeah.
Or whatever company it might be.
Yeah.
In good standing. I mean, it's in your best interest that everything's on the up and up.
Right.
Yeah.
And we do, we've had, we're batting 1,000% on those kind of things. So we're really, feel like we're doing the right things. But once you say, okay, I've got this ground that's in ag production, you kind of have to think about the economics of it, because the deduction is available to the landowner at the time of acquisition. Okay. If this land was purchased long, long ago, a lot of times the economics aren't going to work out very well, because then we have to go back and do some forensic agronomy to get to that original soil nutrient load at the time of acquisition. And we're going to use market value data for the nutrients at that date of acquisition.
So the price of nitrogen at that given time, phos, whatever, so
right.
on and so forth. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So what we've found is, even though this deduction has been on the IRS, in the IRS code since 1960, it's been around a long time.
Oh, wow.
It really, the economics don't work until after, if you guys remember 2008, 9, 10, we had the ethanol boom. We had a lot of pressure on supply chains for inputs. We're expanding acres all across the country to feed these new plants that were being built all across the country. And that's really when our input costs went up, not by percentages, but by multiples, right? I mean, It just went up a lot. And because this deduction is valued at the market value for that nutrient at the time, that's the nutrient value went up, the deduction value went up, and by the way, land prices went up too. So everybody's kind of trying to figure out how to make an acquisition of expensive ag real estate make sense. Yeah. And this is one of the tools to do that. So really, if you look at, if you came to us and asked, we'd probably recommend anything bought before about 2010. You're really going to be doing more work to get through that hindcasting process, or that forensic agronomy process, and you're going to be chasing a number that's getting smaller and smaller the further you go back.
Gotcha. Okay.
So we also, people that have maybe acquired land through a tax-free exchange, what's like a 1031 type exchange, that brings the basis from the old property into the new property. So you relinquish a property, and that basis gets transferred into a target property. We've often found that that old basis coming forward is really small.
Okay.
And when you take a capital deduction against your capital asset, your ag real estate in this case, you've got to have a basis to deduct against, right? So if that's too small, that starts to become a limit on the real value in terms of taking a deduction and reducing your taxable income for this type of a deduction. So those are just a few, ag use, kind of the timing is the market values and all that, right, for this type of deduction. And then, kind of thinking about that basis, that tax basis, make sure that you've got enough tax basis that you can actually use the deduction.
So is there any...
Guys, if you've liked the information that you've seen so far, go ahead and check out the full-length podcast on our YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe there. It's also on all the major podcast platforms. We're constantly dropping info and more content on all the social media platforms, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, etc. Check it out for a lot more content.